By now, hopefully, you've been able to build this code and you've been able to get everything working exactly as you saw it from the demo. If you haven't got that, my recommendation is you do. It shouldn't take too terribly long to make that happen. But before you continue on, I want you to really have a feel for what the error's on. If you have that ready to go, we're going to continue on here. All right, so what our program doesn't do here is get good input for sure from the user. In order to do that, we have to combine a couple of the logical pieces we have here. We have to basically do a loop to say, until the user gives us good data, keep going. Now, there's a number of ways we can construct this loop. We can basically guarantee the user keeps going forever until they do it. We can say the user can keep going until they cancel within that, or we could do it for a specific number of times. Say, hey, if I have to ask you more than 10 times, I'm not gonna deal with it anymore. That's up to you and your program logic, what you're going to be asked to do. And we'll talk about those different approaches. There is no single approach to make this happen. You could use a for loop, you could use a while loop, you could use a do while loop, you could do a number of different approaches to this. So we'll just pick one of them and go from there. So the first thing we have to do is loop around here. I think the easiest thing is just to start off with this basic structure of a while loop where you're going to keep working until the user gives you the correct value. And so you just say while true. Now this isn't useful from the standpoint it will keep looping absolutely forever. It is useful from the standpoint of there's many different ways we can execute this loop. And so the start that we're going to do there is while true, we're going to say, hey, unless you got to this line of code where I typed this out, you were whatever age 10 years ago, we're going to keep looping so we can put a break statement after this line right here. So if I type out you were whatever age 10 years ago, we break out of the loop here. And so the break goes to the loop. The break doesn't care about the try or catch inside here. Break doesn't break out of a block. It breaks out of either a switch statement or a loop of some kind. So those are the ones that are tied together right here. All right, so let's test out our program here. We just added a while loop, and we could have done do while loop just as easily with the break statement here. So run it. And what is your age? I type in garbage. Nope, it goes away. What is your age? I type in garbage again. Oh, I'm sorry, I typed in a number that time. Wow, I was really old 10 years ago. Let's do that one more time just to show you without me accidentally switching my fingers over to the... There, I just keep typing in values and it keeps going forever and ever and ever and ever and until I type in a number, and I can put in a negative number if I want to, then it will stop at that point. Now, this could be really annoying because one of the other things you can see on side of our pop-up here is there's a cancel button. If I hit the cancel button, it doesn't do anything because the cancel button returns null because I know this. And I'm going to type in a number to make it go away. I know this because I've seen this before. I've looked at the Java doc, but you could test it out as well. So you could say right here, if you weren't sure, you could do a little test of system.out.println age text right here. Or you could use the debugger, and I did not spell that right, so I'm going to fix that. Print line, or you can use the debugger and stop it and look at that variable. That was also another valid technique. If you want to know how to use the debugger, there's a video for that out here on the channel. But I go and run this. If I hit the cancel button right here, you can see it prints out null, as opposed to if I type in a value here. Oops, let's type an actual value. Then it'll print out. Hey, there you go. It printed out a number that was the valid number they put in there, or whatever text I put out there. So that's how I would know this. So one of the things you could do here is you could say is if age text is equal to null, then break. And you could also put some text inside of here. So system.out.println. You can say, guess you are not up for playing. Or whatever text you want to do, whatever response is inside of there. So if the person is canceled, then that's the only way to enter a null here. Everything else will at least end up with a blank string that comes in. And then you can say, I guess you're not up for playing. So I run this code right here. Again, if I say OK by itself, it says I asked you a number. Was that so hard? Because it gave it a blank string. If I hit cancel, it gets null and says, guess you are not up for playing. So that's one way around our problem right here. If they hit cancel, they've clearly not wanted to participate. They go away. Another way around this problem is maybe after a certain number of loops, then I'll stop at that point. So to do that, we could do this with a for loop, or we can do it externally here. Number of fails is equal to 0. We start that off at 0. We have to initialize the variable because it's inside of our method here. Variables inside of a method have to be initialized. They don't get a default initial value. And so if it fails, we could say number of control space, number of fails is equal to number of fails, control space again, plus 1. So each time we get a different additional fail, we can do this. And so we can say while number of fails is less than, let's say, 5. We'll let it fail up to 5 times. So this is one way of constructing this logic. Let's see how it works. We run our logic here. Here's our age. We put in something that's bad. I'm just going to do it off screen here since it's on my other screen. Again, it was bad. Again, it was bad. Again, it was bad. Again, it was bad. And then the program stopped. It went away. It stopped popping up. You can see it ended at that point. It did not type that out. So at that point, it said this number of fails here. Now, the downside to this is there's no place for me to engage and identify that the user has failed some number of times. If I did a for loop, I could not have to count that there. I could loop for 1 to 5 times and ask 1 to 5 times. And again, there's not necessarily a place for me to engage that the user failed at that point. It's a little bit tricky in that logic doesn't engage exactly the way we want it to be. So as an alternative, I could do something like this. I could say down here, if number of fails is greater than 5, then I could say, oh, you know, I actually probably should put this logic down here after it fails. That would make much more sense. If number of fails is greater than 5, then I could say system.out.println to be you just took too much on this. All right, and then at least we could have some indication there. And by the way, if we can do that, we would go back to true up here. Now, this is logic that is possible. This is the combination of the different pieces to form that logic. There's no right answer on how to construct this logic. And honestly, this type of answer is probably tough. Because just because I stopped entering one thing correctly, if I can't enter that one thing correctly, what do I do with the rest of it? So if I'm there and you're ordering a pizza and I ask you, well, what topping do you want? What type of crust do you want? What type of shape do you want? If I'm asking you 4 or 5 different things, if any one of them doesn't work, I've got to abandon that whole flow. So it's very uncommon that I allow the user to just fail out 5 different times. The more common is if they hit the cancel button, then make that happen. So your assignment might ask you to do a specific number of times. That's perfectly good logic to try out. As long as you have some way of the user being able to bop out of there, like using the cancel button or something like that, then for me as your instructor, if I'm grading your code, then I'm okay with that. I just want to see that advanced logic of integrating some decision inside of that. So you have loops and then some decision, either a break statement or a for loop or whatever it's going to be inside of that. So by the way, let's just make sure we run this code and see it work. We talk about it and we want to make sure it works. So oops, no, I want something that fails. So there's number of failure 1. Oops, sorry, I hit the run button twice. Let me just start over again. Run button 1 time. So what's the age? 1. It pops over my other screen again. 2, 3, 4. Oh, I hit cancel. Darn it. Screwed up my test case again. So 1. Let me just do it over here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, nope, 5. There you go. You just took too much time on this. Oh, wait. Look at this. It just popped up again. It allows me to keep doing it. I screwed up my logic. So when I did this, I said, you just took my time with this. I forgot to break out of it. That's why we always test. You got to break. So even with me, I've done this 1,000 times, and I've coded this so many different times, and I forgot that piece. So even though maybe it looks so easy because I've been coding for so long, and I speak Java as fluently as well, hopefully as fluently as I speak English. Hopefully I speak fairly fluent English there, but you can run into problems. So now with the break, the program will actually end there. So let me go ahead and run it one more time. And so here is my age. And so something bad. Again, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually not till number 6 that seems to fail. You took too much time in this and the program terminated. All right, so that is the type of logic we're looking to do to integrate exception handling with the other things we've been learning about and getting to the point we can build useful applications such as validating user input.